Welcome to Crime Story. Today, we bring you a chilling and haunting tale, the mysterious death of a young beauty queen and flight attendant, and the 11 men who were with her in a 4-star hotel room. Was it a tragic accident, or something far more sinister? If you find this story compelling, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support our channel, so we can keep bringing you more gripping true crime stories. Now, let's begin. She was young. She was radiant. She had dreams as high as the skies she worked in. Christine Angelica Dacera, a 23-year-old flight attendant with a brilliant smile and a future full of promise. On New Year's Eve 2020, Christine wasn't boarding a plane or clocking into work. She was just going out, like so many others, to celebrate the end of a long, difficult year. It was supposed to be a night of laughter, champagne, and countdowns. A night to forget the worries of the world. But by midday on January 1, 2021, Christine's body was found lifeless in the bathtub of a Makati hotel room. The headlines exploded. What started as a simple celebration had ended in tragedy. A night of fun became a national mystery. What really happened inside room 2207? At first, the police declared it a rape slay. Then came the twist, an autopsy that claimed it was natural causes. But bruises, scratches, lacerations, all told a story that didn't match. The public was confused. The family demanded answers. And across the Philippines, one question echoed louder than fireworks: was this really just an accident? This is not just a story about one night. It's a story about conflicting truths, blurred lines, and the haunting silence that sometimes follows justice denied. If you believe stories like Christine's need to be heard, don't forget to like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to Crime Story. Because sometimes, asking the right questions is the only way to find the truth. December 31, 2020, the world was waiting to leave behind a year filled with uncertainty, loss, and lockdowns. For Christine Angelica Dacera, it was a chance to unwind, laugh, and dance her way into a new beginning. That night, she messaged her mother, asking for her blessing to go out and celebrate New Year's Eve with some work friends at a hotel. It was a simple request, something daughters all over the world say before heading into the night. Her mother said yes. After all, what could go wrong? Christine checked in at the City Garden Grand Hotel in Makati. She wasn't alone. With her were several colleagues, fellow flight attendants, friends of friends, and new faces. The room they gathered in, room 2207, was filled with drinks, music, and the energy of the countdown to midnight. CCTV footage would later show flashes of those moments. People laughing, clinking glasses, walking down the hallway in and out of the room. Everything, from the outside, looked normal. But as the hours rolled past midnight into the early morning of January 1, 2021, something shifted. Christine, once full of life, was no longer seen on camera. The party faded. The music stopped. And the clock kept ticking. The next day, just before noon, someone found Christine in the hotel bathtub, unresponsive. The celebration had turned into something unexplainable. She was rushed to Makati Medical Center, but it was already too late. At just 23 years old, Christine was declared dead on arrival. A nation woke up to the shocking news: a promising young woman, gone. No clear answers. No explanations. Only whispers, CCTV footage, and a rising storm of questions. The quiet hum of New Year's Day was broken by panic. Just before noon on January 1, someone stepped into the bathroom of room 2207, and what they found would haunt the Philippines. Christine Dacera was lying unconscious in the hotel bathtub, her body unresponsive, her skin pale. There was no pulse. No signs of breath. Just stillness. The rush to save her began instantly. She was carried out and taken to Makati Medical Center. But by 12:25 p.m., the hope vanished. Christine was declared dead on arrival. A vibrant, talented young woman who had been smiling just hours earlier, now gone. As medical staff worked, police arrived. And what they found made their hearts drop. There were bruises on Christine's legs. Scratches on her arms. Discoloration. Signs that didn't belong on a body that had died of natural causes. Quiet concern turned into suspicion. Within hours, the news broke, and it hit hard. The headline blared across social media and television screens: "Flight attendant found dead, suspected rape slay." The term alone sent shockwaves through the country. How could this happen in a place so public, with so many people around? The public was stunned. Was this a tragic accident, or something far darker? As investigators began piecing together the fragments of the night before, another storm was brewing. The line between fact and speculation would soon blur, and the truth, whatever it was, would be buried beneath headlines, hashtags, and unanswered questions. Just days after Christine Dacera's shocking death, the first official autopsy report was released. The cause: a ruptured aortic aneurysm, a rare and often undetected heart condition that can strike without warning. According to the findings, there was no foul play. No crime. Just an unfortunate medical emergency. But to Christine's family, that answer didn't sit right. Not when there were bruises. Not when there were scratches. Not when there were lacerations, swelling, and what authorities called suspicious fluid found in intimate areas. Her body told a different story, one of suffering, not sudden collapse. Her mother, Sharon, refused to believe that her daughter, healthy and young, had simply dropped dead without reason. The public agreed. Social media erupted with theories, outrage, and disbelief. How could a healthy 23-year-old die of a natural condition after a party, in a hotel room, surrounded by people? The timeline didn't add up. The footage raised questions. And the marks on her body, well, they screamed for answers. The phrase rape slay lingered in headlines, but now it battled against something more subtle: medical explanation. The official report gave a cause of death, yes. But it couldn't explain the injuries. It couldn't explain the sperm found during the examination. It couldn't explain the silence of those in the room, or the delays in reporting. Was this truly a tragic case of natural causes, or was the truth being buried beneath bureaucracy and confusion? The more people read, the more they began to wonder, was Christine Dacera's death being written off too quickly? Because sometimes, the facts on paper don't align with the feeling in your gut. And this time, the world's instinct said, this wasn't just medical, it was personal. As Christine Dacera's name filled headlines, the story took another unexpected turn. The Philippine National Police identified 11 men who had been with her that night, all labeled as persons of interest. They weren't strangers. These were her colleagues. Her friends. People she knew and trusted. But now, the narrative shifted, suspicion replacing familiarity. The media framed it as a case of betrayal, a party turned into a crime scene, and those once seen laughing beside Christine were now seen as suspects. Some of the men spoke out. A few openly identified as gay, insisting they could never, and would never, harm her. They said it was a night of fun, not violence. Celebration, not tragedy. But the police weren't so sure. Within days, the Philippine National Police issued a bold statement: if the suspects didn't surrender within 72 hours, they would be hunted down. A manhunt. For Christine's co-workers. It was a dramatic move, one that caught the public off guard. And with that, the court of public opinion ignited. Some demanded justice, convinced Christine had been wronged by people she thought she could trust. Others warned against a rush to judgment, pointing out that evidence was still unclear. Innocent until proven guilty, they said. But in the heat of grief and headlines, that principle seemed to blur. The internet was flooded with theories, blame, and confusion. 11 names. 11 faces. Some came forward. Others stayed silent. But all were now part of a story that was spiraling out of control. Behind the scenes, investigators scrambled for proof. But to the world watching, this case was no longer about what happened, it was about who was responsible. And Christine? Her voice was silent. Her truth left tangled in speculation. While the rest of the country held its breath, waiting for a breakthrough, or a breakdown. Room 2207. That number became infamous overnight, the room where celebration turned into controversy. The City Garden Grand Hotel CCTV system became a critical witness. Grainy footage showed the group entering and exiting the room multiple times throughout the night. Smiles, drinks, laughter, all the signs of a festive evening. But sometime after midnight, things changed. The cameras couldn't see inside room 2207. But Christine's body told its own silent story. Scratches lined her arms. Bruises marked her knees and thighs. There were lacerations, some deep, and signs of possible sexual contact. It didn't look like a simple aneurysm. Not to her family. Not to the public. Not even to some experts. Still, the police made a shocking announcement: case closed. Solved. Just 5 days after her death, the Philippine National Police declared they had the answers. 11 men were now suspects. The word rape slay echoed across headlines. It was fast, maybe too fast. Medical professionals, legal experts, and journalists raised red flags. Where was the full toxicology report? The second autopsy? The verified DNA tests? There were still too many missing pieces. Instead of clarity, the case unraveled into chaos. Some said Christine was drugged. Others believed she'd been pressured, coerced, betrayed. Then came counterclaims that the bruises might have come from CPR efforts. That lacerations didn't necessarily mean abuse. That the supposed evidence was being misunderstood, or worse, manipulated. The public didn't know who to trust anymore: the police? The friends? The news? Each version of the truth seemed to contradict the last. Social media boiled over. Hashtags trend. Justice for Christine became a national cry, but with so much confusion, no one was sure what justice even looked like anymore. Amid the noise, one thing was clear: this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. And behind every frame of security footage and every autopsy result, a young woman's life remained at the center. A life full of promise, now lost in a sea of shadows and suspicion. The moment the words aortic aneurysm appeared in the first autopsy report, the room fell silent, but not with acceptance. It was disbelief. Christine's family refused to believe their daughter's life had simply ended without warning. Not after the bruises. Not after the scratches. Not after what they had seen. No, her mother said. This wasn't natural. The public seemed to agree. Hashtags surged. Candlelight vigils flickered across social media. Voices called out not just for answers, but for accountability. And under that rising tide of pressure, the cracks in the investigation began to show. The Philippine National Police, once confident, now backtracked. Within a week of calling the case solved, they admitted what many had already feared: there wasn't enough evidence. In fact, there might not have been any real case at all. The narrative began to shift. What was first declared as a rape slay was now being walked back, not by whispers, but by officials themselves. A second autopsy was authorized. Christine's body, laid to rest, was disturbed again, in hopes that a hidden truth might finally be uncovered. But when the second report was completed, it wasn't made public. Instead of clarity, the secrecy fueled more questions. What did it say? Was it different from the first? Why the silence? Meanwhile, lawsuits erupted like aftershocks. Christine's family sued, for negligence, for mishandling evidence, for the emotional torment they endured. The defense lawyers sued right back. So did some of the named suspects. Even the medical legal officer who signed off on the original autopsy came under legal fire. It was no longer just a case about one woman. It became a war of reputations, politics, and media. Truth, if it ever existed, was drowning in paperwork, finger-pointing, and press conferences. Every day that passed without real answers was another wound for Christine's grieving family. They didn't want headlines. They didn't want hashtags. They wanted the truth. But in a country watching the case unfold in real time, one thing became heartbreakingly clear. Justice delayed isn't just justice denied. It's justice distorted, until no one remembers what's real anymore. As Christine Dacera's name echoed through newsrooms and social media feeds, attention shifted not just to the people in the room, but to the room itself. Room 2207. A number that had become infamous overnight. It was more than just a suite, it was the silent witness to a mystery no one could seem to solve. The City Garden Grand Hotel, once a sleek high-rise known for its luxury and skyline views of Makati, quickly found itself thrust into a different kind of spotlight. One that burns. One that doesn't fade. Authorities began looking closely not at the crime, but at the hotel itself. Under strict COVID-19 protocols at the time, hotels were only allowed to accept guests under essential travel or quarantine reasons. Parties were strictly forbidden. And yet, here was a group of young professionals, celebrating New Year's Eve, gathered in a single hotel room for what was clearly a party. A clear violation. The Department of Tourism launched an investigation. Within days, they pulled the plug, revoking the hotel's operating permit, suspending its accreditation, and slapping it with a 10,000 Cuban pesos fine. A symbolic penalty, many thought, for a situation far more complicated than mere rule breaking. But beyond regulations and fines, the deeper issue remained untouched. What really happened that night? Why was no one from hotel security alerted when the celebration stretched into the early hours? Why didn't anyone respond when a guest went silent in a room full of people? And most disturbingly, if protocols had been enforced, if parties weren't allowed, if the rules had been followed, would Christine Dacera still be alive? The building remained. The walls of room 2207 still stood. But they weren't just drywall and carpet anymore. They had absorbed the echoes of a tragedy. And though the hotel faced penalties, and paperwork was filed, no one could answer the question that hung in the air like the final note of a funeral song. Was this just negligence, or something darker? Sometimes in a case like this, it's not just the people who fail. It's the systems. The safeguards. The protocols that are supposed to protect people like Christine, young, bright, full of life, from slipping away unnoticed. Because when the doors close and the music stops, the silence should never be this loud. By April 2021, the noise had dulled. The headlines faded. The hashtags slowed. The Makati prosecutor's office dropped the charges citing insufficient evidence. No one was convicted of any crime related to Christine Dacera's death. And in February 2022, the final blow came, all related cases, against the 11 persons of interest, against Christine's grieving mother, against lawyers, against the police medical legal officer, dismissed. Just like that, silence. But silence isn't the same as truth. And for Christine's family, silence doesn't bring peace. It brings pain. A daughter lost. A case surrounded by confusion, conflict, and contradictions. One moment she was dancing into the new year, young, radiant, full of promise. And the next, she was gone. Found in a bathtub. Her story consumed by a system that seemed more interested in closing files than finding answers. No clear resolution. No solid conclusion. Only a question that lingers in every heart that heard her name. What really happened to Christine Dacera? Christine Angelica Dacera wasn't just a name in the news. She was a sister. A best friend. A cum laude graduate. A young woman chasing dreams above the clouds. Her death was not just a tragedy, it was a wake-up call. About justice. About trust. About how quickly a celebration can become a headline, and how quickly a headline can fade without closure. Whether she died because of a hidden medical condition or something more sinister, Christine deserved answers. Her family deserved answers. But in the end, what they got was silence. And that's why we tell this story. To remind the world that Christine Dacera was more than a case number. She was a human being. And her story should never be forgotten. Let this video be more than just a recounting of tragedy, let it be a voice. For the silenced. For the unanswered. For the families still waiting. Because justice delayed, is too often justice denied. If Christine's story moved you, please like, share, and comment. And don't forget to subscribe for more true crime stories that demand to be told. Thank you for watching.